I'll do the first round, okay? Good afternoon, everybody. We want to welcome you here to uh, Gov School this afternoon, where we're going to be talking about the RFP, how to find the right one, and using our concept of the indicators of success, as well as some our chat to GPT to help you in the process. As you come into the meeting, we'll get started a couple of minutes after. But I always we're going to do this live on YouTube right now, so it will be recorded. There also will be minutes taken or a recording transcript that'll be available after the meeting, so you don't have to worry about recording and or using your AI assistants if you have those. And it could cause conflicts, so we decline those when they ask for that. Okay, so we'll get started here in just a couple more minutes. So I want to thank you for coming this afternoon to our session. And I've called this, finding the right RFP using our Eagle Eye system. We like to call it Eagle Eye, which is pinpointing going in for the hunt on a new RFP. I think the finding is a really big obstacle for a lot of you, and because there's really just so many. Right now, we got some 56,000 active RFPs, bids, and calls for some sort of response. And we add, of course, about 5,000 new ones today. So the issue a lot of times is, don't get overwhelmed. As you can see here, we're monitoring bids in some 72 countries, all of them tied to the US or Canadian dollar some way. So this is like the embassies, and there's, various offices that we might have overseas and military bases and so forth. And so you can go in, and we actually are serving some 240 industries. So you can quickly, if you're not careful, find yourself overwhelmed with the amount of opportunity that actually exists. And so today, what I want to do is actually zero in on how to actually find that, and make your time productive in the process of going towards that win. And Gov Directions, of course, has been in this sector since 1998, and our primary objective has always been to deliver the RFP to you, and the RFP delivery system is our primary method of doing that. We learned there early on that it's not just the find, but also the win, and understanding how to do that. So Gov School is a service that we created in order to come in and to provide you the knowledge necessary to really get out there and move to that next stage of actually winning. And we, of course, have our YouTube channel. This session here is broadcast live on YouTube. So I appreciate those who are watching us a little bit later. Please come to the website and check us out. And you can also, if you just drop down there, you can actually subscribe to our channel. We have thousands of subscribers who watch us routinely. We have hundreds of hours of videos that are there for you to freely available to help you understand how this marketplace works. And of course, our Gov Advice product is there for you as a micro consultant to help you with various technical assistance requirements that you might have. And with that, today, I want to go through just quickly some slides that I've developed to kind of guide us to really what you're actually seeking. And I call this Taming the Dragon episode. So it's basically because it can be unwielding and out there, and that there's a great movie out right now. A lot of kids like that movie, and so I've built on some of the sayings within that movie to help you take sort of the mystery out of government contracting. I heard somebody said that this morning is they keep starting and they keep stopping, they keep starting, they keep getting overwhelmed, and you just don't need to do it. I like to say, I've been doing this for over 30 years, and while it can be scary, it's okay, it's fine, but don't stay scared. That's the problem. You got to go through seize the moment. And that's a quote from Garber in the movie. And so it's and the whole theme is that it can be difficult. Okay, it can look difficult, but don't let it be overwhelming to you, and really step in there and understand it. So today, what I'm going to do is just briefly walk through the structure of an RFP, and then I'm going to actually tell you really kind of sections you're watching out for, because that's going to help you define what your indicators of success are. And in fact, right now in the chat box, I'm going to give you a couple of pieces of items that you can actually work on while I'm talking with you. So let me get a chat box here, and then I'm going to give you a link to everyone in the meeting. This is a link to our indicators of success document, and you want to take it's a quick form. It's a little corny, but it's helpful to you in order to really zero in on what you're looking for. What are the, I ask you, what are the 10 items that you're looking for? And I have about 20 that I look for routinely, and I'm going to show you some of those and how I actually use those. And then I actually have a little poll here that we've developed that I'm going to give you. Let's see here if I can figure out how to start the poll. Maybe I'll have to come back to that. I'm not sure how to do that. Okay, I'll come back. But I was going to ask you some questions about whether or not you've been through an exercise like this today, and it might be a little bit more helpful as I walk you through this. And then I'm going to actually use an actual RFP. I'm going to go find one. I actually saw one this morning that caught my interest, and I'm going to show you how to use the GovDirections RFP Writing GPT to actually analyze and take some time and save you hours of a review that you would normally have to do in order to determine really what's next in the process. First, I like to always determine if it's really a go for me, especially when I'm looking at a couple of them a day and I'm busy, and if you know anything about me, I stay busy. So I got to make sure that we're using our time efficiently and productively. And a lot of times it's not necessary to read through, 100 or 200 page RFP, and I'm not even really interested in that. Can just take up hours and hours of time, and I don't want to do that. Okay. But before we get too far along, you keep hearing me call this using this term RFP, request for proposal. Okay. Basically, the government, whenever they want to do something, a state, local, federal government agency or a quasi government that has somewhere money from one of those levels of governments attached to it, they have to do a public solicitation, and they do a bidding process, meaning that they're going to compare you against others. This agency or this company of some sort, this organization, it could be an authority. A lot of us don't even realize we have these 45,000 authorities in the United States who are buying routinely. They may be looking at a water and sewer system or a public airport system or transportation system, but they're out there trying to acquire something that's considered some sort of valuable commodity or asset. And it's important to them. Oftentimes, whenever they go through this decision-making process, and you're sort of at the end of it, it's actually occurred over years, sometimes 2-3 years in the making. Right now, we're in Georgia discussing rapid rail from Atlanta to Savannah. Been discussing, seems like, for a decade, but it's now starting to come to some fruition, and they're doing surveys. And so a team has won a contract to do a survey, and so this process has just taken a while to get there. So you can learn about things through this elaborate system. But at the end of the day, they end up going to some sort of to you as a supplier to ask you to give them a proposal on how you can actually assist them. A lot of if you study the theory of the practices are commonly referred to as the theory of the firm and why we contract with each other, the Ronald Coase theorem. And it basically is that you've got something valuable the government needs to acquire, and you can do it more efficiently and more effectively than they can do it. So you need to make sure you're watching for that, and that it really matches up to you, and that whenever you reply back to them, that you really are getting a good, solid match to their evaluation criteria, so that you can win that business. And so they'll use these instruments. And just quickly, we have various instruments. There's first three: RFIs, RFQs, source of salt. Basically, they're looking to see if there's a true marketplace. And they may be asking, they may ask for something specific, like you're in a specific region of the country, or maybe you have some sort of demographic characteristic for your company, that you're a small business, for example, veteran-owned business. Or potentially we might get anxious to we can go straight to the market, and we're going to ask for quotes, bids, requests for bids, a little more elaborate solicitations, or, and my favorite, and we'll get into it in just a minute, but the request for proposal itself. There, I know what I want generally, but I don't know exactly how to get it. And so I'm asking you as the expert to tell me how to achieve the objective that I'm seeking to achieve. And so when you're going through there, the good news is all of them, and there's multiple other methods that are out there, But I'm going to keep it simple. And for this presentation, we're just going to call them all RFPs. But the good news is they all have these typical parts. They're looking at for a statement of work, basically telling you what they want to do. And it's the government's responsibility to be to practice what's called the ABCs: accuracy, brevity, and clarity. And so they're responsible for drafting a document that you review, and then it has this information. The statement of work, whenever you read that, it really just needs to, hit in the back of the head. I'm not going to, this is actually a Coldplay song. I'm not going to go into the theme of the Dragon movie, but here it is. You're the one that I wanted to find. When you read that statement of work, it needs to say that to you. And if it doesn't, just move along. And then you have other parts of the technical specs, the schedule, the list of deliverables, the contract terms and conditions, the format of the proposal. The good news is when you work with the government, they tell you exactly how to give them the information that they're seeking. That's the format. You got to follow it. The qualifications that you need, the experience. And while all these other items here are important, they're not quite as important as that statement of work. It really just needs to sing that song to you. The other, if it's a good match, 70% maybe, then it's still worth pursuing. And governments can give you an ideal situation. You want to get the highest point factor that you can, but not everybody can do that. And so they understand that going into it. So just realize, don't walk away for something because you can't get 100 on it. Okay. The cost breakdown, understanding where you're at in the competitive marketplace itself. And then, my goodness, whatever you do, pay attention to the valuation criteria. The evaluation criteria is the only thing the government can use to actually evaluate you. They have to treat you uniformly. And so they're telling you where the points are at. I hear all these folks really going in and zeroing in on cost. And frankly, most times when you're looking at RFP, it's like 10 to 20% of the points. 80% is it's the explanation of what you're going to do. And so get those 80 points, and you don't have to get all 10 or 20 of the cost. So you don't have to go and lowball a project just to win it. And that's an important distinction. So when you're looking at price analysis, I teach price analysis, but it's also performance analysis, meaning that you're looking across at all the evaluation criteria in order to determine where you need to be at. But by far, the most important is that statement of work, and it needs to sing that song. You're the one that wanted to find when you get into it. And just remember that when you're looking at things, everything's a challenge. Okay, dragons themselves are not the problem; they're a unique challenge. So it's a test of our character we read. And so when you're looking at that bid, that's not the problem. It's a challenge. When you're looking at using GPT, it's not a problem. It's a challenge. And so you want to use all your tools and pull them together in order to get back and really get a winning proposal for them. And one of the things I really profess in this arena is using the basic concept of indicators of success. In this form that I just gave you, when you complete it, you want to have these basic requirements. First, you want to make them personal to you. Okay, it's not just about making money, or maybe that is personal. Okay? Everybody's got to make money. I remember when I first started, I always say this, I kid around, but it took me 7 months to find my first contract, and I had kids and I had a family, and I needed to make some money because we had to eat. And so I would have took anything. And so then my first indicator of success is that they're paying you something quick. Okay, so if that's it, then you get it. Now you see, I've got a little bit of age on me. I've been around. I've won over 400 contracts and 34 different states, and so I could be a little bit more selective. And now I want to have some work-life balance. So whenever I go on a project, it takes me about 2 weeks to do a project. I want to make sure that it's close to a fishing stream. It's something that's important to me. And so whatever it is, whatever the indicator is, make sure that you're writing that. Make it personal to you, but also make them rewarding to you. The government doesn't expect you to come in and lose your shirt. That's not what they want. They want you to give them something, and they want to pay you a value in return. It's going to be a value. They're not something extremely high or way out of cost ranges, but rewarding to you. Okay, use the same ones consistently. Don't change them around. So when you're evaluating, always use the same ones, and you'll have more success over time. And then weight them. Weighting means basically say which one is most important to you. Now, while the fishing stream is a good idea, that's not the most important thing. What's the most important that is it's actually going to be in maybe a 4-month window to me, or that it's going to have a number of employees that I work with. I do a compensation analysis, and with that, it needs about maybe 150 to 250 employees. That's about it. So those are the ones I'm going to weight the most. Okay, and you got to determine what they are for you. And if you've got 10 of them, just an even weighting system where it's 10% each, that gives you 100 points, and then you can actually break that down. But if you really don't care, I want the fishing stream, it's nice, but that's only maybe 1 point, and then I want 19 points on the number of employees, so I can weight it around, and then it can help me in the process. And then whenever you do analyze, always analyze every RFP using the same method. And then you'll have routine consistency in the process. And so you get your indicators of success, you define them first, and then you go out and actually work. And so I'm gonna jump into an actual RFP in just a minute. But when you actually use tools, and you can do this, I've done this for years without having any sort of AI assistance, and I've used spreadsheets and other methods, and including just just your general brain, and you're welcome to do that. But nowadays when I'm busy, I can drop something into my chat. I can give them 10 different RFPs, and I say reevaluate all of these at once, and then go off and do something else and come back and get my information. Okay, but you got to make sure you choose the right prompts. You gotta make it pay attention. I mean, it's kind of funny. A lot of times I hear folks say, "Well, the chat system basically makes up all this stuff and confuses all this stuff." Well, generally it's the operator, okay, not necessarily the system. So you've got to really give it instructions in order to make it sure that it does what you need it to do. And so I routinely tell it to do something like tell the truth, don't embellish, be accurate, don't assume. Assumptions are really bad. Only focus on what I'm talking about right now, not everything I've told you for the last 10 weeks. Okay. Things like that is really going in there, training the system, training the jargon in the process. And everything you do, don't be in a rush. Okay. Always take a look at everything. Don't just take it and copy it and paste it. And I'm the worst of this too. I thought that, you gotta live what you preach sometimes, but I'm running around a lot. So, but you do need to wait. You got to read through it, make sure it says what you do. Don't just take what's given to you as the final. And I've seen that over and over again. You need to really put it into your flavor of your organization, not the flavor of chat, not somebody else's flavor, but your flavor. Okay, and help that. You set aside, think about it, improve it over a couple of days before you send it in. Always ask your colleagues, okay, and make sure the results are, well, here he is. I actually have it written down flavor. And then always personalize the proposal, but make it professional. One thing I've seen a lot of times, and you can do this in the social media prompts or something like this, but using all these little fancy, I'm using a little dragon here. It's okay in the PowerPoint, but not in a business proposal. Okay. Use standard professional proposal formatting, not green check marks, not little brains, to get all that stuff out of it, make it professional. The government spits hours and days and months and potentially years getting to the point where they're asking you for your opinion, so you can at least treat it in a professional way. Okay. And so make sure you do that. So let's just step in, because I'm a big believer. If you been around and watching any of the videos I do, it's all about experience, and the only source of knowledge is experience. So let's just dive in there and go and actually find us a bid, to take a look at an RFP. So if you go into RFP delivery here, when you first log in, you come to your dashboard, a couple different ways to actually find things. And I'll just point out a couple of things while we're here, that since you get extra bonuses. But if you haven't taken a look at your new SBA profile, you need to make sure you do that. They brought in a lot, and bless their heart, they made some mistakes and didn't bring in everything you need to have in there. So you need to go in there and update it, folks, because if you don't have your capabilities narrative, your capabilities statement, and they don't have the keyword part fixed yet, you can't actually go in there and change those. But you're not pulled up when somebody comes to look for you. Okay. And it's important that you do that. I actually help clients do that. If you have an interest, give our office a call and have Dale talk with you. She'll get you on my schedule. But that is one of the most important things we can do in government contracting at this point right now, because they made that big change. The first change I've seen in that in probably a couple of decades. Okay. And so it's been around. It was the old Cold Fusion system, but it just changed overnight, not much warning, and everybody lost a lot of information. Okay. You also need to make sure your capabilities statement itself and the narrative of your statement is finished. Okay. And so before you actually start on anything, you want to take that capabilities narrative and use that as a part of your, I'm going to actually download it on my desktop right now. And we're going to use it in just a minute. Okay. And so you want to be able to come in and use this in your responses and have it ready to go with details. And so if you are actually a company and you're doing multiple things, I had somebody yesterday doing technology, but also has custodial and other services. Now you want to have multiple capability statements. So you need to invest in that and have that available. So you're not sending the same one. Just remember, your capability statement it is not a resume. Okay. It is a statement of what you're capable of accomplishing. And while it's important to a technology group that's looking for you to hire you for technology reasons, that you can do custodial services, that's not really a good rhyme. And you need to convince them that, one fits you and you fit them. Okay. And so you need to have that speak to that in an important way. There's a good video here about capability statements my friend Dr. Cynthia Harper has done. Over here on the left, you're able to go in and actually search. And on the right-hand side, you can do a global search, just a keyword and run it. They don't necessarily work hand to hand together. And so when you do the filtering, you go in, you're actually precisely able to come in and look and narrow down those 56,000. And so I can actually type in a keyword like compensation or classification, and it's a Boolean search technique using these conjunctions and not to it's the way we search really before Google. But you come in, you don't actually have to do a word search. You come in and use a different format here. I'm actually going to do one for consulting, and I'm going to do human resources here, and then in Virginia. I saw this project this morning, so I'll make it easy. But it's very precise. I'm calling out, all the bids I don't need. So I'm finding the right bid using some easy, simple search tools to begin with. Now you may actually go in and do a broader search on the right-hand side, but here I'm just going to save that filter or apply it. And when I apply it, it's going to show me this bid in Virginia. There's only one. So I've zeroed in, I saved a lot of time. Now the same way, potentially coming in, if I'm going through, like this is the first time I'm using the system today, and I might just go out and say, well, you know what, let me just look at compensation study and see if I can find me a bid for a compensation study. And so there's two there, okay? And maybe I want to run these both at the same time to see which one really fits me. When you actually open up here, you can see, the location, the due date, the level of government. You're going to be able to socially share it with others. But you step in here, and this is where you actually will see more information about that bid. So the town of Haymarket has broadcast their bid on the EVA system. Okay, and so here's some details, and I'll just share with you while we do, and some places really highlight the fact that you can get, the person's name here and so forth. You do not need to pick up the phone and call this person in Haymarket. That would probably be a violation of the rules. And so you got to be careful about that. You don't want to be pulled into a non-responsive situation just when you get started. And while they're nice to you and helping you, but if you violate the rules and you approach them the wrong way, they just put your response back on a pile. It's called non-responsive. I mean, they can't look at it because they got to follow the rules themselves. So remember that. You can capture the bid so you don't lose it. Always, and this is important in your finding the right side full of bids, and especially if you're in businesses like custodial services or grounds and landscaping, and they're doing this something routine, maybe procuring it every year or every 3 years. Here in this situation here, my type of work, they only do it maybe every 8 to 12 years on average. So it doesn't really pay for me to really monitor a capture system for the type of work I do. But you can hear and keep that pipeline full, and then you know where to go. And when this is over with, you can practice more traditional business development. There, get in there, shake hands, say, hey, I know you already selected somebody this year, but next year I want to be your guy. And just get in there. And so before they go to bid, have a draft RFP that hires you. Give it to them, help them out a little bit. My goodness, they have to write these things all day long, and they can't really go in there and use chat like you can. So they have to really formalize it and work with it to get out there, and so getting some help sometimes is helpful. In fact, sometimes you look at a bid and think it's been written by your competitor. Well, that's because they probably gave them some of the content. Okay, as we step into it, we go and actually find. There's a lot of these robots out here these days, and so let's go again. Stare. Okay, verify. Okay, submit. And then if I go in here, I'm able to actually download this RFP. Okay, so awesome basic. At this point, you're at the government itself, and you're working with them. There's no additional fees for loss finders. They want to work with you. Okay, but you got to follow the instructions whenever you go through and do this. So I can download this, and as I go in and download it, it's going to prompt me a couple of different ways. Let's see here. Submit. I got to be able to do it right. Submit. Okay. And it probably, there it goes, download. And so it gets me my RFP there. Okay, so now I've got my capability statement and an RFP that I'm looking for. Okay, now I went in and I actually did my indicators of success document, and hopefully you've done that. I'll explain it here in a little quick video about what I mean. That is, as I said, it's kind of corny, but I'm asking you the same question over again, over and over. What is it that you're looking for? Tell me. Okay, 10 things. Okay. And then you take that form and you use that information in the right way. And then, of course, we actually designed a new chat system that we're going to be introducing. But I like to use this forms. Everybody, I think there's like 2 billion people using Chat GPT. I think I read just the other day that Tesla guy, Elon Musk, is complaining because nobody's able to get Grok on their system because everybody's getting this one. And because, it's free, I mean, it's out there. So I just use this one just to say the least. But the concept itself, it's not anything spectacular, just so you know. It's a system of doing this, okay? And you can use any of the other GPTs that are out there. You can use Claude.ai and other ways to actually go in and do things. But you can come in here and you can go to, if you're using chat, go to GPT, and then you can search for GPTs themselves, okay? And normally you can do that. There we go. Okay. And so you can just type in Gov Directions RFP Writer, and this one will pop up. Now we just moved it to 5, which is the new system. Okay. And I would just point out that in this system, they're doing a lot more graphics, and some of your graphical representations are actually helpful. And I actually asked the chat, I called him Eagle Eye, and I said, can you design yourself your own logo? And he did. And so we have this great little new logo that they put, and he's also went in and given us some prompts to help him out if you are going to respond to things. So the first thing is you want to create a form to gather your capabilities, because he wants you to give your capabilities. He wants you to summarize tell him what you're looking for at an executive level. He wants to know what your indicators are of success, and then you're going to end up with a process of evaluation. Okay, and so in my system here, what I've done is my indicators, how I weigh them. There's 10 that I use. In this case here, I like for the project to be located in the Southeast. At one point I used to travel all over the country. I don't like that. I've been to all 50 states. It's something I'm proud of. I actually been to all 50 capitals too. It's been fun. But those days are gone. I don't like to travel that much anymore, but I'm willing to travel in a small geographic area. And also, like exceptions, I like to go out to the Dakotas. I love the Dakotas. I love working out. They're great people. But here locally, usually, okay, I don't want any more than 250 employees. I want a budget of my project about 50,000, okay, on average. And the reasons for that, because it's in and out. I'm doing things quickly. I don't want to be there for a long period of time, and that's generally the budget's going to be at. I don't want to work with the state or the federal government. I want to work with the city or county. And I'm also want the finance department involved somehow, because I got a finance background and I tend to communicate better with them whenever I do that. And the time of my project completion no longer than 6 months. And while I'm willing to do that a little longer, it's one of those indicators I like to watch. And you don't want to be, in my work, you don't want to be married to them too long. You want to get out of the door. Okay. And I want the due date at least 10 days out. Okay. Because I got to have time to prepare. And I won't need to be considered a remote work if it's there. But I'm willing to still go on location. And I don't want to go there more than 2 meetings though. And that's about it. And I do not want to do any kind of benefit review. Okay. So this is my mix. So I told her what I wanted and what I don't want. Okay. And there's 10 items. And then I weighed it. Okay. And in my weightings process, I said, when you do this, just treat them all evenly. Okay. And when you give me a score, if I get a score of 90 to 100, then it really is the category. You are the one I wanted to find. Okay. And I've got to respond to that with a high priority, 90 to 100. Because above a 90, it's an A. Okay. If it's 80 to 89, that means I got a great chance. I'm a strong fit and I want to move forward. So this is my definition. And you can come up with your own definition. Now, this is a boring area of life. So have fun with it. And then, this one here might be go home and tell the wife that we might be going on vacation, because we might be getting us a new project. Something fun. Okay. The average 70, 79. If it's at least 70, I'm still going for it. Okay. And I've got an average chance of winning it. But if it's below 70, I'm passing. Okay. It's not even worth much trouble. It's not a good match. For example, if I was to put one in here for the city of Atlanta, even though it's right down the street from where I'm at right now, I don't want it because it'd take up half my life to work for them. And I don't want to do that. It's not a good fit for me. Okay. And so at this point, I would go in and I have introduced myself already. I will introduce myself by giving them, let's just say as a reminder, and I like to remind frequently, here is my capability statement. Okay. And then I'll drop it in. Okay. I have everything ready to go on my desktop. Okay. And to get my folder, I have templates, I have prompts, everything here ready to go. Okay. And so I'll drop it in and I'll go ahead and just reintroduce myself. Okay. And then I'm going to say, I am interested in this new RFP in Virginia. Please go. I like to say please and thank you I read somewhere where recently that takes up a lot of memory. You're not supposed to do that, but I'm not. It's a habit. Okay, please score and provide an executive profile. I've already told it kind of what I'm looking for in the process. Okay, and remember, I've already given my indicators of success. I've went in and I've told it what I'm really looking for as from an executive profile, and it has to do with insurance requirements and things like this. Okay, and there's things that are important. Okay, and let me pull this down here. Uh, Go in. I had it here. So there it is. Yeah. I'm going to introduce it to the RFP itself. Okay. Okay, so I've took tools, the indicators of success. I've took the actual RFP itself, introduced it to this formatting, this matrix, and it's giving me a scoring of the process. So I got a 10 out of 10 on the first two, got an 8 on the budget, but there wasn't an exact budget, but I can pretty much, I know a little bit. I'm gonna use my knowledge at this point. It's probably a 10 on this one. Okay. It's a town government, it's perfect. It's a finance department, is the treasurer's doing this, even better. Okay. And so again, the only thing is no more that they want me to be there at 3 to 4 meetings. Okay. That is number 9 on my list. So I can probably overlook this one. And guess what? It is rated as you are the one I wanted to find. Okay. And so it starts off and gives me an executive profile that I can review. Okay. And take a look at what I actually need to do. Okay. And what they're actually asking for qualifying. Now, it gave me all these little icons. I always have to remind it, tame it a little bit and say, please keep everything professional, no silly graphics. Now you can have silly graphics if you want them, but I just kind of don't like those. Okay, because I don't want to accidentally end up in my plan. So let's develop a roadmap. Okay, and as you go in, it moves forward. It might even be the next thing is I want a professional checklist to share with the team. Okay. And no fancy graphics, no grain check marks, no grain checks. Okay. So you got to tell it, you got to continuously tell it. Only also always do this too. After I get a bunch of them in, I'm going to only focus on this RFP. Do not confuse with any prior RFP or assume or make assumptions. Everything should be tied back to what the government agency has provided within the document. Okay, so I'm reminding it, don't go out, go out and do other things. Stay focused. Huh? Okay, and so it's giving me who's going to assign it, who's going to do things. And if I have my team in here, you can always go ahead and get your team in there, but I'm going to have to do a cover letter, company profile, project understanding, and scheduled deliverables, qualifications, references. So it's helping me really fully understand what I've got to do. And now I've got myself a checklist, and then I'm going to go about actually moving forward to actually producing the RFP. So I've spent some time with you today showing you how to go into the RFP delivery system, understand how to search, how to actually download the documents, how to build your capability statement and importance of that, draft up your indicators of success, pull those into our RFP writer chat, which is basically a really cool tool that is continuously learning itself. I think I've got a couple, about 1,400 folks using it now. And it's useful enough to really go in and zero in and use it to analyze things. Now, I have done classes on how to actually use it to write your response, and I would just share with you, as much as you want it just to do everything for you, and it can, okay? But you need to make sure that you're telling the organization what you want to tell them, not what a chat system's telling them, okay? Not what they want to necessarily hear. from a system. They want to know how you do things that only you can bring to the table with your knowledge. So it's a balance. Okay. I love chat. I love this whole system, everything that's around with it. I constantly use it. I encourage students that are in my classes to use it in an efficient way, but doesn't replace who you are and never will. Okay. And I don't believe that, but just go into the GovDirections or RFP Writer GPT, choose the 5.0 and get started with it. Okay. And with that, I'm going to stop the recording today on YouTube Live. If you've joined us on YouTube, thank you for doing so. And I appreciate you sharing your time with us. And then I'm going to stay in this room here to allow us to spend time answering questions that you might have. But first, I want to just let me figure out how to get to that window. And there we go. Okay. And more.